Well, first of all, I would like to address a few things. And the first one is that I would like to show you these two books. This one is Living Through Suffering, the translated version of it, and this one is Cruelty is Youth. Both of the books are already translated into Vietnamese, and if you can understand Vietnamese, you can have these two books. There are many languages in this world. I think Buddhism definitely needs to be propagated through different languages so that more sentient beings can understand the teaching of truth of Buddhism. And ultimately, these books are the methods to lead sentient beings to be alleviated from suffering and attain happiness. This is the ultimate goal of such books and such languages. If people can understand the teachings of the truth of the Dharma, then they can be alleviated from the suffering. And the suffering is definitely a hot topic nowadays. The second thing I would like to address is that for the people in our audience, if you have lots of those significant or traditional or vintage Tibetan clothings, the clothings and the Tibetan type of coats and hats and so forth, I don't think the Tibetan dresses around this area is needed, but in other areas that has lots of specialties, very different, and has lots of history behind them. I think clothing also represents the history of different ethnics. Therefore, it's needed to be preserved. Therefore, if I have time, I really want to study more into the history of the costumes of Tibetans. I really wish it doesn't disappear, this tradition or this type of clothing doesn't disappear in this world. So it needs to be preserved. And I think whenever I have such an opportunity, I would really like to invest more time into the preservation of this type of clothing. Though it would be difficult for me to, though it would not be possible to change the clothing of the monastics, but I think for the lay practitioners, it would be quite wonderful to have some fashion designs in terms of or on top of the traditional Tibetan clothing nowadays. This is related to my personal hobby. When I was young, I really liked making the Tibetan coats as well as the vests and so on. So it's been 30 or 40 years. I've never touched those things for that long. But I think if we have some practitioners or if there are people who are interested in making the ethnic or traditional clothing with fashion, then you can get in touch with us. Now, let us get into the actual teaching of Ksitigarbha Sutra. The unsurpassed, profound, and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in hundreds of millions of eons. I now see it, hear it, receive it, and uphold it. I vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning.
Mernamdang, Yang Rigdang, Ri Tatat Pi, Mernam Laksar, the Wagon Vamo Ganjik Zibana, Jacques Dengi, and Samji Michipim, Dorden Daniel, Flagsham, Shanchu Sanwa, Sai Nyambum, Sanjo, the Chukchi, Gangwana, Sard, Kipi, Wagon Vamo, Ganjik Sunum. Sunum Mayim Baletang Danyang, Detle Yongs, Trojan Journey, Devaran Sojang, Tseyang Peron Giro. Gatsu Sunum Dang Dambi, Ver, Tiena Dele Yang, Devaran Sojang, Tseyang Peron Giro, Gunda Yamba, Maun Jiktingi, Semchin Namar, Da Shung Joko, Tsep Chigdang, Tsep Gatang, Tsep Jurjedang, Tsep Jorngadang, Tsep Jurgetang, Tse Nersumdang, Tse Nerjedang, Tse Nergetang, Tse Nerger Nam, Nergane, Tse Simchi Vata, Nerev Gender, Digbel Lernam de Tiji, Shava Yenbe, Nyen Tetak La, Leki, Yanjit, Nirtan Shipa, Lon Zawang Langa, Semchin Namji, Gunlong, Gumshut Tamchit, Le Mayemba, Digba Mayemba, Medna, Gung Dundut, Semchin Sopa, Mashinba, Lemba, Dupe Lobra, Yemba, Zender Mavar Namji, Digber Namjan, Shmo Magoso, Tina, Tichin, Yin Chubo, Tetar Nams, Sanjay, Shanship Sanhua, Damba Gung, Kurzik Jim, then Nemdund, Tsarchik Lagna, Shar Lo, Novo Shang. Rene, Hotsad, Yachuk, Nangdan, Jigba Tamchit, Yons, Jeveran, Euro, Dorde, Do Lob, Kim, Gangjun, Tamchit Yang, Data, Maon, Lo, Yapchuk, Nams, Ansung, Neston, Manjuro, Tichinji, Nimchupo, Teta Nams, Nyenrevision, Dorde, Sarchik, Lagna, Kim Teta Yang, Namda Yang, Timayim bin Chevada, Timayim bin Narnam, Jor Manjuro. Jean Z dans Kubosum Soba dans Dambaran Gero, Posum Soba Dambaran Gero, Posum Soba Dambaran Gero. Tina Gunda Yamba, Shanchu Sanhua Sai Nyambo la Tirtir, Zimchir Kish Top dans Panyon Jutme par Garton Chaksheva Chak Gya Danna, Steve Chimbondo, non Zang Longa, Semchin Nam Lagang, Leki, Jera Kabarchan Yope, Semchin Ganjik, Shanchu Sanhua Sai Nyambondi. San Tuba, Shansu Senhui, Kurzim Jarvani, Zong, Tanam Durdin, the Yingzh, Simam, Yingzh, Ringagam, Yana Tsik Gam, Yana Tsik Tuber Gernati, Sender, Deva Pasum Sobadan, Danjang, Maun Jiktin the Yang, Serb Gyapchak, Tomchak, Chipchak Namsa, Zikshit Pasum Sober and Gervatan, Rigzambu, Kimder Kever and Gero. Di Sip Shanchu Sanwa Gunda Yambe, Devjan Shaba, Shanchu Sanwa Sai Nyambu, Yondan, La Ngabur Joba, Tamcha Tuni, Bimu Yepel Hanga Sala, Signe, Tarmo, Jerjan, Flarian, Jordan de Landerkata, Sora, Zumbab Jordan de Dokachi Tomani, Steve Chimbo, Deep Samgi Mekipir, Zimchirki Stoptan, Damjadan, Smolumgi, Stober Nam, Shizanya, Maon Semchin Namgi, Maon Semchin Namgi, Di Payon Shibi, Slatter, Lariam, Jordan de la Chet, Tiba, Yen Lab, the Chirki Jam, Jordan de Chirkut, Somba Janda, Tester, the Zon Shao, Jordan de Dorden di Mangla Chirkut, Sha, the Chirka Chester Pero Sha, Jordan de Kikunda Yambala, Kapsarte, Dorden di Mangla Sim Sharte, Sai Nyambus, Molumgi, Molum Jivshavim Dodan, Sai Nyambus, Sai Shupi Molum, Sai Shupa Jivshavi Dodan, Sai Nyambus, Sai Damji Stopkim Do Jivshago, Shanchu Senhui, Dui, Shanchu Senhuandi, Fukarachi, Mambo Ne, Sim Gyachimbo Kete, Semchin Namla Pambaram Zanna, Kichak, Di Tikid, Vjindum, Don Danyad, Yonser Pero Shao, Shanchu Sanwa Gunda Yambe, Terkut, the Tune, Kibe Tarmo Jerjan, Shamsane, Songo, Sai Nyambor Saver Monumgi, Do Le, Devjan Serbe, Nobab Jupa Lega, the Trigba War.
Well, I do have one more thing to address. And that is, I am not going to have an audience these days. I really hope that you can understand it because of all the situations right now. So if you have questions and so on, it is best to read books, listening to classes. You can then find the solution through the Dharma. Now let's continue with this chapter on the Tathagata's praises. Previously, we've already learned that the person or the Bodhisattva who mainly asked questions is Samantavipula. And he asked Shakyamuni Buddha, saying that, well, since you praises Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva for his merit, then can you tell us about his inconceivable merit? And how could he have such merits? And then the Buddha expounded on the various merits of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. While we're studying the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's Sutra, I think there are people who have lots of faith. And if you have such faith, it means that you will understand the merit of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's merit and how important it is, and you'll be able to understand it and take to your heart. But if you don't have any faith, I think it will be very difficult for you to take these teachings to your heart, because not just Buddhism, let's think about other subjects such as philosophy, science, geology, and physics, and so on. If you don't have any enthusiasm, if you don't take them very seriously, then you won't be able to gain any benefits from learning those. So faith, on the other hand, is really how you are interested in certain subjects, or how you have different types of enthusiasm. We've already learned lots of the miraculous stories by practicing of people and their practices or connections to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. The majority of people can definitely understand these kind of stories. And some of them, though they're stories, but we can find ourselves in it. We can find our similar experiences in it. And those are also through the inconceivable blessings from Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. Back in 1985, I just came to Larungar. I remember that Pongso Rinpoche just started giving teachings on ornament of Madhyamika. And then he left Larungar and gave teachings to other areas. And so there were over a few dozens of us still stayed at Larungar. And at that time, there was a Khenpo whom is 80 or 90 years old now. His name's Gendo Norwal. He would give us teachings on Uttara Tantra Shastra as well as Mahayana Abhidharma and stories and so on. Sometimes he would tell us about his personal experience and his knowledge and so on. Therefore, when I give teachings on the Lotus Sutra and Diamond Sutra, I sometimes would also talk about the miraculous stories. These stories are beneficial to majority of people. But there are people who received Western education, and they're not so interested in these type of miraculous stories, because mainly they would listen to stories of this lifetime rather than the previous lifetimes. I've listened to speech given by lots of famous people. They would talk about their father, mother, friends, and wife, husbands, and so on. They would give examples or talk about stories of their present life to further prove their personal points and personal perspective. Anyhow, I think it's quite important to use very logical evidence. On the other hand, it's very important to use a very heartfelt, very sensible evidence as well, especially the examples or stories that happened because of the pure heart and pure mind. So let's get to today's story of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. There was once someone who believed in the three rules and very devoted. He would make offering to the three rules very often. And his wife died because of difficulty in labor, and he was very heartbroken. And after his wife died, he then practiced lots of virtuous deeds, such as chanting and such as dedicating marriage to her so that she can be liberated and so on. Then she also made a statue of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva that's the size of the same height of his wife, and would prostrate to that Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's statue. And one day in his dream, he dreamt of this really beautiful celestial Devi. And that Devi said that I was your wife, and it is because of the merit that you've already made the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva statue and dedicated marriage to me. Now I am reborn in the celestial realm. Therefore, I am here to thank you. Also to tell you why I died in the difficulty of labor. In my past life, when I was a wife to someone else, at that time, I did not have any children, and therefore my husband then wed a concubine. And later on, that concubine got pregnant, and I had lots of jealousy towards her. Lots of doubts and jealousy was torturing me because I was afraid that my husband won't love me anymore. Therefore, I poisoned the concubine as well as the baby that was still in her belly. And because of that, for 6 kalpas, I was reborn in the hell realm, and I was suffering a lot. And later on, finally, I was reborn in human realm, and I had to suffer from a difficulty in labor and die from that for 57 times. Now, because of the merit of building Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's statue and dedicated marriage to me, I finally was able to be alleviated from my negative karma from the past, and I was able to be reborn in the celestial realm. Now, I only need to be reborn once as a woman in the celestial realm, and I don't have to be reborn as a woman ever again. Therefore, I am very thankful to you. In this celestial realm, there is a virtuous Dharma shrine hall. Every month, all the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattvas from tens of thousands of worlds from 10 directions would gather here as monastics. and they would give us teachings of the Dharma so that we can, so that our wrong views can be eradicated and we can finally attain happiness. After she told him about her experience in the celestial realm, he woke up from his dream. He felt this bittersweetness, also was very touched. From this story, we can see that there are people who created lots of negative karma and suffered for many kalpas. And later on, because of the merit of creating or making the image of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, they can finally then attain the happiness and peace of human and celestial beings. Recently, I've got a small Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva statue for everyone who's attending class over here. I think people who are listening to this class online, you can find other ways to get a picture or small statues online. It will be easy for you to find those. You can even download pictures from internet or get a statue or so on. Right now, it's really easy. Through different methods, it's really easy to copy, to download, to color copy the images, because previously it would be very difficult to create or to make an image of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, but now, because of the development of technology, it has made this so much easier. Of course, if you don't have any faith, then you don't have to worry about it too much. But if you have faith, if you have devotion, then if you have a Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's image in your shrine hall, then that would create auspicious dependent origination. And this kind of dependent origination cannot be described by the mundane beings. And this kind of merit cannot be described or fathomed by the mundane beings. In many of the stories, it talks about the date of the 24th. Today is the 24th on the Tibetan calendar. According to the Tibetan calendar or the other calendars or I Ching, it talks quite a bit about the special days or special dates. Those days are very much connected to the dependent arising. In the previous story, it also talks about on the 24th of every month. Let it be on the Tibetan calendar or on the lunar calendar. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva has very special manifestations to liberate sentient beings. Pamasambhava, for example, he would appear on the 10th day of every month. So that's the most blessed day for Pamasambhava. So let's get to the teaching today. The Buddha said to Samantabhipula, in the future there may be people occupying the lowest stations in life, such as servants, maids, or those deprived of freedoms, prisoners, disabled people, or people who are deprived from their rights or freedom of speech or freedom of action. For the kind of people who are under the control of others, who don't have any freedom at all. In fact, without freedom is definitely brings lots of suffering. According to the Sutra, it says that everything that is under the control of others is suffering. Everything that is in its freedom is happiness. Therefore, if you're not under the control of others, that is the biggest joy. If you're under the control of others, like parents or brothers or teachers or the spouse and so on, without freedom definitely brings lots of suffering. There are people who considers that they don't have any freedom, but lots of times it's really that they don't feel freedom in their mind. The reality is probably that they're not completely, they have not completely lost their freedom. For example, they're under control of stern parents or stern teachers. In fact, the students or children are under the stern control of the parents or the teachers. They may seem to be suffering, but it is sometimes necessary. Similarly, for the monastics to take monastic vows or to take the vows, they are under the restraints of their vows. But this is really not without freedom. It is, in fact, we are following certain rules, that is, proper rules. And those kind of proper rules would guide us onto the right path in life. Many people would say that I want freedom, and they would think that they don't need any kind of limitation. They don't want any kinds of limitation of the law, or they want to do whatever they want. In fact, it is not like that at all. Freedom is not like such at all. Freedom is something that you have to follow the proper rules and proper regulations first, and then you have proper freedom. For people who are imprisoned, their human body has been locked up in the cells. They have no freedom at all. Or there are people who have physical freedom, but their mind is constantly imprisoned by, for example, being tethered by Mara or afflictions and so on. That is without freedom. And these kind of freedoms are of great suffering to the sentient beings. There are 5 reasons for the loss of freedom. One is that arrogance from previous life. They look down on others. Second is that they're very stubborn. And third is that laziness and disrespect towards the 3 jewels also leads to the lack of freedom or loss of freedom. The fourth one is stealing. Fifth one is not returning the money, what they are supposed to return to the others. So these are the 5 causes and conditions. And for people who had done those in their previous life, that would lead them to become or to be reborn in a lowest station in life, or deprived in freedom. If they realize their present situations are the result of their past karma and feel the need to repent, they should earnestly pay homage to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva statues or paintings and devoutly chant Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's name 10,000 times in a period of 7 days. There are people nowadays, they would complain about how they are not beautiful looking king, they don't have any power, they don't have any, they don't have a higher social status. In fact, all of these are very much related to the previous karma. And as a wise person, you should definitely confess, because you should know that this is because of your previous karma. And the method of making such confess is to wholeheartedly revere the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's image, not just superficially, but wholeheartedly. Such kind of devotion and sincerity is necessary. And if for such a person, he could chant 10,000 times of the Bodhisattva's name in 7 days, then after the conclusion of their current lives, for tens of millions of lives in the future, they will often be reborn into nobility and not experience the agonies of the three suffering realms. So making prostrations and revere the images of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva is very necessary. According to the 10 Chakras, the Sutra of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, it says that if one were to chant the name of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva in one day, then that merit can be compared, can in fact surpass the chanting the names of other bodhisattvas. Can surpass such merit in chanting other bodhisattvas' name for kalpas. Other bodhisattvas' names such as Manjushri, Samadhabhadra, and Avalokiteshvara, and so on. Mipa Rinpoche, in his praises of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, he stated that if one were to chant the name of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva for one day, for a whole day, with such kind of merit is indeed unfathomable. Therefore, for such a person who could chant for 7 days, that is even more inconceivable. And the merit of chanting for 10,000 times is inconceivable as well. We can chant Namo Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, or we can chant according to the Tibetan version. Let's chant together.
Shanju Sanhwa Sanhwa Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sham Zalun Chodo Gyosunji Shanju Sanhwa Sanhwa Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sham Zalun Chodo Gyosunji Shanju Sanhwa Sanhwa Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sham Zalun Chodo Gyosunji Shanju Sanhwa Sanhwa Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sham Zalun Chodo Gyosunji Shanju Sanhwa Sanhwa Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sham Zalun Chodo Gyosunji Shanju Sanhwa Sanhwa Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sham Zalun Chodo Gyosunji Shanju Sanhwa Sanhwa Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sham Zalun Chodo Gyosunji Shanju Sanhwa Sanhwa Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Sham Zalun Chodo Gyosunji Shanju Sanhwa Sanhwa Jimbo Sai Nyambo La Zalun Chodo Gyosunji Sai Nyambo Kiki Teki Dam Zaba Monan Gense Nibiz Lame Ishi Gemzhi Genzhawa Tenja Kunra Danson Gyosho 这样就是念
If we chant for 10,000 times, according to the sutra, sometimes it would talk about we have to chant to a certain numbers, for example, 10,000 times. This kind of set numbers are important. Nowadays, people have lots of dualistic thoughts. They have lots of concepts. For example, they would feel that, well, if a scientist says certain numbers, they would take it, they would believe it right away. Or a doctor, for example, this medicine, you have to take it 3 times a day. They never question, why don't you take it 4 times a day? Why can't I take it 3 or 4 or 5 times a day? If you were to tell him, this is very basic medical common sense, therefore you have to take it that way. And they would take it, they would buy it right away. But in Buddhism, if we were to say that you have to chant it for 7 days, chant it for 10,000 times or 21 times, then that person would say that why 21? Why that number? Why so a number? Well, in fact, these kind of numbers have profound meanings. If we're not very professional, for example, in medicine or in Buddhism, then I think we should not treat those numbers with lots of differences. For example, we question one number but not the other. I think our doubts and questions have lots to do with our background, our educational background, and the environment that we grew up in. If one were to grow up in the in a Buddhism family, then they would take whatever the Buddhism Sutra said as granted. In fact, people's doubts and questions had lots to do with their environment, with their education, with their parents, the influence of the parents, or of the culture, and so forth. There are people who don't have faith, and then they would maybe slander, or maybe they would say things or question or doubts. That's understandable because they don't have any faith. If there are people, in fact, who have lost freedom and have faith, and then if that person could chant confession, if they can confess wholeheartedly and then chant 10,000 times of the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's names, then that person will never be reborn in the lower realms. Human body is difficult to attain, and I think it is the best to finish chanting the names of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. It is the best to chant the Tibetan version, but if you really can't, chanting Namo Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva is really not that difficult. Around the Song dynasty, there was once a monastic who had violated his vow. And after he violated his vow, he was really upset because he felt that he will be reborn in the hell realm. And he didn't eat or drink for 3 whole days and chanted from day to night. And then Amitabha showed up in front of him personally and said that originally you will be reborn in hell realm, but because of your sincere chanting of the Buddha, your negative deeds will be pacified and your human life will be extended. You can live for another 10 years, you will be reborn in pure realm. And at that time I will come and I will then take you there to the pure realm myself. He said, no, I've already seen Amitabha. I cannot stay here for 10 years because I really don't know what I'll do for 10 years. I'm a terrible person. I'd rather go to pure realm right now. So he then died and then went to the pure realm after 3 days. With a sincere heart, we can definitely move the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and will will eliminate the obstacles from our negative karma. So we definitely have to supplicate with a sincere heart, and we have to confess with great sincerity. With the blessings of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, we can chant the name of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva and then be reborn in the household of nobility and never be reborn in the three lower realms in our life. And then the Buddha continued to say, Samantavipula, in the future there may be newborn babies that come into the households of Kshatriyas and Brahmins and gentries, laities, common people, or those of other clans in Jambudvipa. Be these newborns male or female, in the first 7 days after their birth, the families should chant the inconceivable Ksitigarbha Sutra with devotions on these babies' behalf. In the same 7 days, the families should further devotedly chant Ksitigarbha's name 10,000 times on these babies' behalf as well. For those families that do so, the newborn will be liberated of negative karmic retribution from their previous lives. These newborns will be easy to care for and their lifespan will be increased. These newborns will be very happy and they will be very easy to take care of. Yesterday, a relative of mine came to my home and she brought her child with her, and she said that, well, my child is very easy to take care of. His name is so and so, and he's so easy to take care of. He loves smiling, never cries. Well, I thought I was really busy, and I thought, well, I really don't care if he cries or not. And as parents, I think she really cared that her baby really was very easy to take care and so forth. I had to say, oh, that's really wonderful, but I was really busy. She kept on telling me about the baby's story. Anyhow, the newborn baby, let it be a male or female, the previous karma will be eliminated. The previous negative karma will be eliminated, and also will be easy to take care of, and will be having a long lifetime span. If these newborns were reborn to receive blessings, if these kind of babies were very virtuous from their previous life, have lots of positive karma, then their blessings and lifespan will both be increased. So they will be even happier and have even longer lifespan. I think Ksitigarbha Sutra is quite fitting to the life Buddhism, to implementing Buddhism in life. Not only that we should study the profound Dharma, the profound teachings of the Dharma, more importantly, we should really understand how people in this relative world lives their life, how they face illness, how they face the group of people who are underprivileged, how they face education for the children. And over here in this chapter, it talks about what to do when a child is born. You should definitely chant Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's name to him, or practice virtuous deeds and rededicate the merit. Previously, it talks about what to do to the ones who have lower social status, who were born lowly. And nightmares. Have you had nightmares recently? And I think it's very practical to implement some of the teachings into the relative world, including the ones who doesn't like the forms of their body and so forth. Those are all the things that relative and are the things that people really care about in the relative life. In the previous chapter, we talked about there are people who suffer from lung illness. They suffer from illness for such a long time, and with the blessings of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, they can definitely receive benefits. And there are people who are very content with their life, with their situation, with their form, with their appeal, and then they would feel that these are all the blessings of the Bodhisattvas and Buddhas of the Guru, and I'm so happy, and there's no way of expressing my happiness. So there are people who are very content about their situation. And of course, with the blessings of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, their happiness will be ever growing, will be ever increasing. And there are people, of course, who are not content with everything about themselves. They are not content about other people around them, and not content about their appeal, and not content about their meal. The other day, during the teaching on transforming suffering and happiness into enlightenment, and it says that all in that teaching are talking about all appearance, turning all appearance into enemy. Whatever you see, hear, whatever you experience, they're all unhappy, they're all enemy-like. They're all evil and unpleasant. So, well, if you are already having such a kind of experiences, that means your karma has already ripened. It will be difficult to transform it right away. When the karma has already ripened, it is difficult to transform it. But if you were to supplicate wholeheartedly with great devotion, then you can still plant the seed of happiness later. So over here it says that if one were to have children, then the tradition of each places are very different. Right now, the rituals in mainland China, the ceremonies are giving red pockets and killing other beings to celebrate the birth of a newborn baby. But in the ancient India or in Tibet, usually the tradition is to find some great masters and monastics and give them auspicious names and chant some sutras and mantras for these babies, and then practice lots of virtuous actions. Not all Tibetans do that nowadays. The young generation has slowly lost such virtuous traditions. But anyhow, the auspicious coincidence, auspicious dependent arising is inconceivable. As parents, however, I think it's important to plant the virtuous seeds for their newborn babies. According to Confucianism as well as Buddhism, they usually talks about education for the baby. Nowadays, that is quite a popular thing. During the pregnancy, if you can practice meditation, practice virtuous deeds, then the baby can grow up or can be born in a pure and happy environment, and their mind mind would be very different. If the baby is born in a war zone, in a very horrifying, insecure environment, then the mindset would be completely different once that baby grows up. Nowadays, there are children who have bad temper and have bad relations with their parents. I think that has something to do with the early age bonding with the parents. As Buddhists or non-Buddhists, once you have a newborn at home, it is important to give red pockets, but more importantly is to chant Ksitigarbha Sutra and rededicate the merit. Nowadays, I think people don't really give the red pockets anymore either. The connections between people are getting less important, even between siblings. They just ask for pictures. They don't even pay attention, or they don't really pay visits anymore. Of course, it would be really wonderful to have a child that has virtuous connection to you. If the child has a bad connection to you, such kind of bad connection can be transformed. The masters from the past said that inside a family, there are family members who have the connection of repaying the kindness. Some is to repay vengeance. Some is to chasing after the previous debt. Some is to repaying their debt. So there are all kinds of connections that we have with our relatives and family members nowadays. Anyhow.
只是在这里呢，就是讲一下这个行深菩萨。
So that was the previous part. Now let's continue. Furthermore, Samantabhipula on the 1st, 8th, 14th, 15th, 18th, 23rd, 24th, 28th, 29th, and 30th days of the month in lunar calendars, the 10 days of abstinence. All of the sentient beings' actions between the days of abstinence are accounted, and associated merits and sins are weighted. These days are the special days. We can look at it from two aspects. On one hand, the 10 days of each month, they are all very special days. According to the perspective of the Sutra, there are, in fact, 10 types of devis, 10 types of celestial gods that would then come to the human realm according to the 4 Protector Sutra. And all of these celestial gods, they would celestial spirits, they would judge based on the good and evil of sentient beings, of the human beings, and then they would send these people off to the Indra, so that through the Bardo, Yama would be able to make choices based on the previous virtuous or evil deeds that people had made. It is just like the jurisdictional systems in our relative world. If you were to commit certain crimes, then you will be judged, you will be going on trials, and then you will be sentenced. That is exactly the same as in the bardo. In the bardo, is there a dark room where the yama would be sitting there and then they wear different heads and would give you sentences? Well, not necessarily. But what is certain is that the karma, the habitual patterns that we familiarize ourselves in this human realm will continue in our bardo. So, because of the karma, because what you know in this world, then you would see such a kind of jurisdicial system that you would go through different trials, and you would be sentenced to certain realms and so on. It is because of the different karma of different people you will see different things in the bardo. I often think in this way. Nowadays, a sentient being, after they get into the bardo, after they are reborn in hell realm, then the hell realm may not have the same kinds of manifestation or same kinds of punishments as that is stated in the ancient times, because now we have computers and cell phones, and then in the bardo, in front of the yama, you probably would say the yama has a computer in front of him, and then a whole list of things that you've done in human realm will be listed over there. Because nowadays our life is so closely correlated with the computers and cell phones, so those kind of things could be manifested during the bardo time because of your karma. And nowadays, lots of the stories of bardo is very connected to the jurisdicial systems that we have nowadays. People would think that, well, this is only some urban myth. There's no such thing like such. But from the ultimate way of looking at it, indeed, the hell realm is the creation of sentient beings' karma, and because of the different karma of sentient beings, the different sufferings would vary as well. The different kinds of evil deeds and punishment would be sentenced. And because of the time's different, the time is very special according to resting your mind at ease. It says that every 6th day of each month is the Dakini day, and there are days where would be the best to practice virtuous deeds, and because that's when the channel and wind is at a special alignment. There are people who would ask why there are days where you should practice sadhanas. Why are there days that you should practice feasts? In fact, there are special dates according to the Han tradition as well. According to Longchenpa, he said that the 10th day, during the day of the 10th day of each month, is where the Dakini would gather, and during the night of the 25th is where the Dakinis would gather again. And then over here it says that for sentient beings in Jambudvipa, their every movement and thought are the source of negative karma and sins. This is very famous because it's quoted by lots of great masters. It is even worse for those who willfully steal, harm, kill, indulge in lust, slander, or commit hundreds and thousands of other sins and crimes. Therefore, sentient beings should chant the Sutra before the statues of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas once on each of these 10 days of abstinence. For those who do so, no calamities would come within 100 yojanas in the 4 directions of these people's residence. Sometimes we chant sutra, we chant mantra, we chant the protector chantings. In fact, we should practice that on set days. We should have a schedule. We should know on certain days we should practice certain. We should adapt to certain practices. This is quite necessary. So over here it says that on one hand, on those special days such as the feast days or the 10 days of abstinence, those days are all very important. No calamities will come within 100 yojanas in the 4 directions of these people's residence. Also, earlier we talked about 7 days as well. The number 7, in fact, is very special. Many people would wonder why 7. The number 7 is quite special, very unique, even worldwide. Let's look at it. There are 7 days within a week. We usually would say that we have to finish it in 1 week, that is 7 days, or 2 weeks, the 2 times of the 7 days. 7 days is also a very special number in Christianity and other religions as well. Not only in this sutra, in other sutras such as Amitabha Sutra, where it talks about in 1, 2, 3 to 7 days, if one person were to chant the Amitabha's name without disturbed for 7 days, then at the time of death, all Bodhisattvas and Buddhas will appear in front of that person, and that person will be able to reborn in Pure Realm. So according to the Pure Realm, Pure Land tradition of Buddhism also talks about 7 days. In the Zen Buddhism tradition talks about there's a Zen 7 days of meditation of Zen tradition. So 7 is also very special. In Larangar, we have 7 days of Dharma assembly for Ksitigarbha, Dharma assembly, same as the Vajrasattva Dharma assembly and the Pure Land Dharma assembly. And for the magnetizing Dharma assembly, for the Vajradhara Dharma assembly, at the beginning we had 7 days as well. And then Ponzo Rinpoche said that in order to have freedom in our physical body as well as our mind, and propagating Dharma and benefiting sentient beings, we need lots of causes and conditions. Therefore, 1 of the 7 days is not enough. We need twice as much. Therefore, 14 days. In the Tibetan tradition, usually when we practice the extensive Purba or the extensive Mahakala, usually it's 3 days or 7 days. And the people, when they practice meditation, 3 days is a bit too short, but 7 days meditation or 7 days retreat, if one were to chant wholeheartedly on the Ksitigarbha Sutra or meditation or medicine Buddha or the Avatamsaka. Sometimes for Avatamsaka practice it's 3 times of 7, that is 21 days, same as Amitabha and medicine Buddha. So 7 is definitely a very special causes and conditions. I believe that would bring very special causes and conditions for your personal practice as well. Therefore, I think we need to contemplate upon that. The previous great masters, they practice with great. They practice very much according to the tradition, very much according to what is stated in the Sutra, rather than nowadays. I think people just practice according to how they feel like it. And that is really not propagating the Dharma, it is to destroying the Dharma. Some of the so-called Dharma teachers, they don't really know the Dharma at all. I strongly suggest that these so-called Dharma teachers not to say whatever they feel like and call it Dharma teaching. Nowadays, we don't have any organizations. When we had those kind of organizations, some so-called teachers, they would ask others to write a contract of privacy to require the students to keep whatever he teaches in private. Why privacy? It means that he's not teaching properly. Therefore, he's quite afraid of others to know what he's teaching is wrong. In this way, I think it is really destroying other people's faith and path of the Dharma. The propagation of Dharma should be proper. You should practice and teach according to the sutras. Otherwise, it is really leading others onto the wrong path, and that is completely meaningless. If there are elderly ones or youth within these residents for the present and future, hundreds of thousands of years, they will be liberated from the suffering realms. If the practitioners further diligently continue this practice and chant the sutra on these 10 days for every lunar month, then for the present lifetime, people in these families will not suffer any serious disease and have abundance of clothing and food. So people in these families will not die of calamity or of sudden accidents and so on. They will also have abundance of wealth and of clothing and food. They will be able to gain those without having to work very diligently for them. Hence, Samanta Vipula, you should know that Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva has such indescribable trillions of great divine powers and provide countless benefits. The sentient beings of Jambudvipa and this Mahasattva has great affinity. They have great connections. The 8 great Bodhisattvas all have great affinities with the beings in Jambudvipa. Many people have great faith to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. We should know that to encounter the Buddha's teaching, or being reborn in a time where there is a Buddha and Dharma teaching, we have to have great auspicious connections to the Buddhas and Dharma. So such connection is so auspicious, it is the best not to let go your connection to the Dharma. So you should cherish this connection to the Dharma. If they hear this Bodhisattva's name, see this Bodhisattva statues, and even hear the sutra, be it only a stanza or a phrase, or just 3 or 5 words, they can attain tranquility in their present lives. In the future hundreds of thousands of lives, they will attain dignified forms and often be reborn to noble families. In fact, these are the things that we would long for in relative world. We want to have happiness and wealth and abundance, and we want to have that for lifetimes. We also want to be reborn in future lifetimes in noble families, in wealthy families. Also, we want to have a very beautiful appearance as well. Last night, when I was heading back home, was already really late. I met a student who kept on who was waiting at my door and told me long stories of how unfortunate his family is. And I felt it is just really unfair that there are people who are really rich and they squander their wealth. And there are people who have difficulty to just keep a very basic living, who have difficulty to receive education. But this is really not unfairness or injustice in this world. It is the difference of the karmas they've created. So in this lifetime, if we can hear the names of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva and the forms of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, even chanting a few verses, words, and stanzas, then it will bring immeasurable and indescribable merit to our future lives. At that time, Samantabhipula Bodhisattva, after hearing the Tathagata's sincere praises of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, then knelt down on one knee with his palms joined. Then he said, "World-honored one, I have long known this Mahasattva has such unimaginable divine power." So Samantabhipula Bodhisattva said that I have long known that Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva have such kind of power and all-encompassing vow. The Buddha, in fact, is very kind. If I were the Buddha, hearing that Samantabhipula Bodhisattva have already known this for a long time, I would have asked or said that since you already know it, then why are you asking me? But then the Bodhisattva said that I only ask my question to the Tathagata for the sake of future sentient beings, so that they might know the benefits of paying respects to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. I am happy to receive the teaching. World-honored one, what should be the name of this sutra and how should we circulate this sutra? So this is the previous part of the questioning, and then he started asking the name for the sutra. And then the Buddha told Samantabhipula, saying that this sutra has 3 names. One is Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's fundamental vows. It is because of the fundamental vows that's made by Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, because the vows are so supreme. This is the name that is very commonly used. It is also called Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's deeds. Not only Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva made those vows, he also practiced these Bodhisattva deeds. Not only he made the vows, he actually practice them. So the deeds, the actions are supreme. Therefore, it is called the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's deeds. Or it is called the power of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's oath. Because the oaths are made by Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, and such oath brought forth special powers, special divine powers, such kind of power of liberating sentient beings. And Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva have such divine power to liberate sentient beings. And whomsoever could chant this sutra, they will be able to attain such kind of divine power as well. And therefore, it is called Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's oath. How to circulate this sutra, how to propagate this sutra. For countless kalpas, this bodhisattva has taken great oath to benefit sentient beings. Hence, you bodhisattva mahasattva should help to circulate this sutra in accordance with his oath. Upon hearing this, Samanta Vipula over here, the Buddha said that you should basically saying that it is the best to propagate this teaching for the benefit of sentient beings instead of only for your personal beings. But most importantly is that you should make the vow, make the same oath that was made by Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. So you should propagate the teachings of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. The Buddha made it really clear. In fact, because Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva made the oath for many kalpas, he did not make the vows for his own happiness so that he could sleep well, eat well. He did not make such oath. He made the oath to liberate sentient beings. He made the vow that he stopped caring for himself, rather he would liberate sentient beings. He could suffer in hell realm as long as the sentient beings doesn't suffer. And if he can make such kind of pure vow, then your vow, your oath would be of great power. So we should learn from Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, follow the oath and deeds of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva and benefit sentient beings in the same way. And that would be of the most beneficial. Upon hearing this, Samanta Vipula paid respect to the Buddha by joining his palms and withdrew, unlike the four Dharmarajas who left crying. So let's end here. 所能得以探求随把念，他能你别着那怕去，今个难起热龙吹吧，只不从人着我中